Hi all, welcome back. I'm Martin, I will be your host for this lecture. So please welcome Laura. Laura is a project manager for Anima International. She is responsible for building Anima's resource library sharing program, as well as for international capacity building. She reaches out to organizations and activists in neglected regions who seeks for resources and material to gain skills and experience and supports their growth in order to strengthen the build and stronger movement towards progressive change for animals. And she will talk today about sharing resources to build a stronger movement. So let's tune in.
Hi, welcome to my presentation. It's on movement building and capacity building. And I would just like to start with introducing myself. So my name is Laura, and I'm a project manager for Anima International. And I am part of the movement building project team. So mainly I am responsible for building up Anima International's resource library and the sharing resource program, as well as for international capacity building. So in a nutshell, I reach out to organizations and activists in neglected regions who seek for resources and materials and want to gain skills and experience. Mainly, me and my team support their growth in order to build a stronger movement. So at Anima International, we aren't looking into setting or starting or setting new organizations or an Anima International organization in other countries. We are mainly looking for local people, individuals and organizations who want to work or are already working in animal welfare or plant-based alternative protein campaigns and strategies. So what I would like to cover today with my presentation is mainly four simple points, which is why do we do this work? Which is our current approach in the movement building project? What have we done so far? And what are the next steps? This, of course, is just going to be a brief presentation. If you would like more information about the project or would like to share experience or as well as learn more about our work and our future plans, I'm going to be around, of course, and still be around CARE conference, and you can always reach out to me. So starting, obviously, why do we do this work? So I know it seems quite obvious to most of us, but I just want to briefly cover some of the statistics on some trends that have been shown in the last 50 to 60 years. Mainly, there are growing trends on the consumption of meat and also on the slaughter of animals. Statistics collected recently by Funalytics, which covers data for land animals, as well as fish, as part of the FAO-Stat database, which is the Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations. So unfortunately, as you can see in this first slide, this shows the global animal slaughter in the past 60 years, first of cows. The absolute number of slaughtered animals has been, though decreasing in Europe, but increasing in the rest of the continents. For chickens, you can see almost 600% increase in the last 60 years. And this is mainly one of the reasons why a lot of campaigns and strategies are focused on broiler chickens because of its growth and the amount and the numbers as well as the amount of suffering inflicted. Just to kind of run over as well the statistics on pigs, as well as you can see an increase in Asia due to the large increase of population and its consumption, and as well as the slaughter of sheep, where we can see that there has been a big increase in Asia and Africa, though the numbers are kind of constant in Europe and the Americas, so Northern and South America. Finally, for fish, we can also observe, based on these statistics, that the general upward trend is mainly in Asia. And this is another reason why there's a lot of focus on fish welfare, and where more and more campaigns and strategies are turning into raising awareness of fish suffering. So the global demand for meat has been growing. So again, statistics from FAO also show that over the past 50 years, meat production has more than tripled. So pig meat is the most popular meat globally, but the production of broiler chickens is increasing most rapidly. The average person in the world consumes around 43 kilograms of meat in 2014. And of course, we also have to take into account that the meat consumption increases as the world is getting wealthier, and richer countries tend to consume more meat. So this is something we also, as a movement, need to take into account. For fish and seafood, seafood has not got any better. So the world now produces more than 150 million tons of seafood each year. I know these numbers are just really hard to imagine, but it just basically means that seafood has quadrupled over the past 50 years. And if you can see on the graph, the average person now eats almost twice as much seafood as half a century ago. So these are numbers that we need to take into account, and these are numbers that we are also taking into account in Anima International in order to focus on specific strategies to build the movement. This last slide just also shows that the production of seafood from aquaculture, but basically fish farming, was higher for the first time in 2012 compared to wild catch. So these are also numbers to be taken into account, and as mentioned earlier, strategies for animal welfare, fish welfare, and fish suffering have to be highly considered and focused on. But also, I wanted to focus not only on the pressing statistics, but to show that there is some positive forecasts, and that one of them is that the global meat consumption of conventional meat could drop by 33% in 2040 and increase alternative proteins, which is plant-based and clean meat. So our main question and our main basic focus is, how do we make sure that this prediction stays on track? We do know that the animal advocacy movement, when focusing on farmed animals, has grown rapidly in the last decade. So if we compare it to maybe the last 50 years. So organizations have grown rapidly in the last decade. They have been better established, and more focus also on topics like fish has been started. However, it could take more than this time to build solid groups and organizations all around the world to continue fighting for animals. So this is why we need to continue to work intensively to further progress. So the follow-up question would be, knowing that we have limited amounts of time and resources, where do we actually focus on? And how do we answer this question moves us on to the next point. So which is our current approach? Which is our current approach at Anima International as the movement building project continues? So first, we need to understand how to reduce the most animal suffering by discovering priorities. For example, helping to build organizations and movements. This we find as one of the key priorities in furthering animal rights work. So where do we mainly focus? So it's the three main keys are importance. So what is the scale of the problem? Where and what region? Trackability, how solvable is the problem? We view this as one of the most important things to get some initial progress, which is to be understood as then will make it easier to advance all other issues. To start on tractability and neglectedness, we began mapping the movement. This means hours of interviews with activists on the ground, attending gatherings and conferences, offline before the pandemic and then online. We learned about the socioeconomic factors, history, culture, animal welfare policies, past and current activism and social movements in each country. This is because we do understand that this impacts heavily on strategies and campaigns. We talked to individuals working in Eastern Europe and APAC region, as they were the main top countries on the farm animal statistics. And we also looked into the EA community, which focuses on the cause area of animal welfare. We then created reports from data and information on all these factors. We then learned about MFA's animal index, and the results of countries where we began to aim to focus on were actually very similar. Though we know that these numbers are far from perfect, we believe we need to start somewhere, and our approach to the movement building in these regions stems from the results of moderate trackability, high scale of the problem, and high neglectedness. This will create groundwork and people power to build momentum to new campaigns and strategies. So how and what have we focused on to support and build people power in Eastern Europe and APAC region? So what have we done so far? So mainly after building reports and continuously interviewing and learning from activists on the grounds, we came up with three main focuses, which were, one of them was plant-based, based on some political difficulties in some areas and countries. A more friendly approach is required. So focusing on plant-based or alternative protein campaigns is something that people required and demanded. So we started with our plant-based mentoring program, which will be launching soon on our lending platform. And it mainly covers the basics of how to start these campaigns, lessons learned, and practical tips. Of course, we understand that not everything shared can be applicable, but we are on a learning process of feedback as well, where we want to learn from people utilizing and learning from these campaigns and how they adapted in the region, and then us learning what are the better tactics in each country. We also learned about the need of volunteer management, and we delivered webinars and workshops as well as for fundraising, covering the basics. And we will continue working on these programs and also launching them on our learning platform. Currently, we tested and ran pilots covering over 15 organizations, and we're building up feedback to learn more about the needs and difficulties. Mainly both for fundraising, it is one of the main pillars of organizations as self-sustainable, and volunteer management. So we also wanted to focus and are focusing on creating spaces for exchange of tactics and campaigns. So one example would be our Food Fight Slack, which is a space to exchange knowledge and experience related to strategies on alternative proteins. And here, many organizations and individuals share experiences, can ask questions. We have run webinars and workshops, and we think it's a great way for people all around the world to understand, to share, and to feel part of a community, to share their experiences. Another example is to facilitate networking through conferences such as this, such as CARE, online or offline. We have seen it based on our own experience that a big part of our movement has grown, and many organizations have grown by attending these conferences, by networking, by learning from other countries. And we think that continue to facilitate these opportunities are highly important to build capacity and to build a movement. And we have also and are supporting with investigations and trainings. And most importantly, we have our resource library, which is currently on the Anima International website. This is a platform which allows activists to download resources for free, and you can use it in your organization. You can use it free of any copyrights, and it's mainly your material once you have downloaded it. And here there is a great selection of videos and graphics, guides and materials, which will be which we will continue building on, and we will continue to work on learning about the skills which are needed within the movement and how would activist individuals benefit from them depending on their region. So I know this is a very short overview about our work and what we're doing. So I'm more than happy to share more details of upcoming projects, and I'm going to be here in the conference as mentioned earlier. You can also reach out to me afterwards, and happy to set up meetings with you. So yeah, this moves us on to the last slides, mainly what are our next steps. So we want to continue to do extensive research on cause areas and learning about the needs of each group and organization. We want to as well further interconnectedness of the movement, helping activists to network and learn from others and their experiences, sharing knowledge, discussing effective strategies, and understanding its background and history. We want to continue training the movement based on the needs of each individual and organizations, supporting and mentoring and training groups and activists to build skills. We also, of course, want to continue developing the resource library platform by providing more free resources that are helpful for running organizations, and at the same time, learn from the groups and individuals using these resources to create an even bigger platform. We are also looking into providing small grants to groups who are on the ground, although we're still working on this. And mainly what we want to understand, and mainly what we see that other groups are beginning to view, is that not one shoe fits them all, and that more understanding of the attitudes towards animals in these regions, as well as helping local groups, is important to gain momentum. So yeah, finishing off, my time is almost up. I would like to, first of all, thank you for attending the presentation, as well as thank you for being here and attending the conference. I really hope that these last few days and what's left for the last panel discussion has been helpful for you and your organization. If you have started work already in animal welfare or thinking about it, I hope that also the networking opportunities have been good for you. And mainly, if you need any other help or support, we are here. And please don't doubt in reaching out. And of course, I'm more than looking forward to your questions. So thank you.
So thank you, Laura, for your interesting lecture. And we have quite a few questions. And yeah, one of them is, from perspectives of being so many years in the movement, what do you consider the bigger mistake animal rights movement did from a movement building perspective?
Well, that's a really, really good question. So, I mean, I can't really point out necessarily because on a long term, we don't really know, but I would say definitely, which has been mentioned before during the conference, not taking into consideration people on the ground doing work, not taking into consideration the political history or the culture, and believing that kind of one shoe fits them all. So if a tactic or a campaign or a strategy has worked really well, and just kind of, you know, tweaking a few parts of it, you can kind of copy paste it. I think it's been definitely one of the things that we could honestly say that perhaps might have been or could have been a mistake. And I think right now, instead of what I think and I understand that a lot of organizations are doing, are trying to empower more people on the ground. And this is how we see it from Anima International. And yeah, I would say that just taking more into consideration people that actually want to start work or doing work, and understanding that even though our strategies and campaigns are, of course, or have been working, that there has to be a two-way communication with activists.
Yeah, that's right. And the next question is, what are the possible ways in which sharing resources with other organizations can backfire and actually harm animals?
That's also a great question. I mean, not to kind of repeat the answer, but I would say again, like maybe not taking into consideration, I would say even a more political stance of the country. Sorry, so perhaps sharing resources or materials. I'm trying to think of an example actually, where you would find that the government of the country or the media would consider it as something negative and would try to radicalize perhaps the activists. So I would say maybe sharing some footage or giving a specific, or telling, for example, an activist that they should tell a specific story in a specific way to a journalist. And for some reason, maybe that backfires because then the overview of the organization or the group or the strategy and campaign is trying to be work there. I would consider that it could kind of make it something global and try to attack maybe perhaps the activists or the group, the organization that's starting there.
Yeah, okay. So kind of continue of this more pessimistic view. Have you had any experiences in foreign funding are not, if foreign funding are not trusted by local people, politicians? For example, if an anti-activism politicians use it as an argument against animal advocacy organizations?
Yeah, actually, we had one case. We were just trying to do some ground level work in Iran, and we know and we understood that any money entering the country, already Iran is a very complicated situation politically, and any money like foreign money that comes in, it's completely scrutinized. So we would see that as viewing us as an international group, that we would try to fund some kind of political propaganda. So I would be careful of that. I know a lot of people also believe the same with Russia, or they don't trust maybe the money that goes into Russia. And I would highly consider speaking to activists. We have activists and we have a team there, but speaking to activists on the ground to understand more the details and the different layers and variables that comes into funding, and that's the funding there actually is and can go to in really good hands. But it would be true that on the political level, it could be a bit complicated to justify that. I know it's the same case, for example, in China and other Asian regions, but yeah, it's something that you would have to then look for strategies into registering or trying to figure out what kind of more positive activism, or even talking to the government itself to understand that that money that's being funded is for something positive and good that the government long-term would probably even encourage or support.
So maybe following this question to the next one from Gabrielle, which are the most countries or areas, challenging countries areas for animal rights work in the world at the moment?
So which countries are changing, sorry?
Which are most challenging?
Which are more challenging?
Yes.
It's a really also great question. I would say countries where first of all we don't understand the attitudes towards animals within the region of society, and where the level of awareness is very low. So I would say countries in, for example, in some areas in Southeast Asia or even in Eastern Europe, would still view, or even Central Asia would still view, or would still not understand how factory farming works, the impacts of factory farming, the attitudes towards animals are only considered, for example, for cats and dogs, and there's no kind of empathy towards other animals. So I would say, I don't want to name specific countries, but I would say pointing out, and this is why we want to map as much as possible and have these interviews and be more on the ground and understand and talk to activists with this two-way communication that I explained earlier. I think mainly it's like trying to understand also the level of awareness, which I know trackability, of course, has a big play into it, but if we understand to what level the awareness and the attitudes towards animals in society are in these regions, and if it's really low, I think there's where you're talking about maybe the difficulties of trying to do work.
Okay, thank you. And maybe the very last question, because we are running out of time. Sure. So what's your personal favorite way to empower people around the globe? Not necessarily the most effective one.
Giving them vegan food. No, I was just kidding. I would say, first of all, just giving trust and allowing people to understand that they can do work, and it looks very scary at first and you think that you're not going to be able to do it. So understanding and giving this trust to people and allowing them to make these mistakes, because anyone that's been in the movement for some time understands that it's okay. And with this trust, I include funding. Like, it doesn't have to be millions at first, but these seed funds do help a lot of groups. And of course, like, a lot of people maybe don't trust if the money is going to be used correctly or not, or if the campaign is going to be super effective. And of course, we need to count every penny, and cost effectiveness is one of the most important things we need to focus on. But we also need to understand that we have to start somewhere, and a lot of these groups have never even started before because there's no movement. So giving this trust and being able to give small seed grants and being able to work together to understand the back and forth of why these campaigns are working or not, and do a lot of follow-ups, I think is the best thing you can do with activists right now.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
That was quite a good insight from your work. And fortunately, we have to finish now. We don't have planned networking session, but you can reach out Laura through the platform and write her private messages, and I think yeah, she will be able to respond to you. So thank you very much once again, and
thank you, Martin.
Hope to have a good time and see you later.
Take care, and thank you very much.